Welcome into another exciting episode of Pete for Society. My guest today is the author of the book, Winning the Mental Health Battle, From Struggles to Thriving, 7 Tips to Navigate Anxiety, Depression, and Mania. Please welcome in the one, the only, Karen Iverson. Karen, how are you doing today?
Doing well. Thank you so much, Pete. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're so welcome for being here. Karen, do me a favor. Go ahead and tell me a little more about yourself. Let them know a little bit about your background and everything else so they get a little more feel for you.
Sure. So I actually hold 2 master's degrees. One is in education and the other is in clinical mental health counseling. I've written 3 books. 2 books are about breast cancer. And 1 book, as you mentioned, Pete, is about mental health. And all of my books basically tell a story of what I've experienced in my life and offer tips sections that I've learned through going through my own life and going through counseling, as well as through becoming a licensed professional counselor. And I'm also a public speaker. I speak on various events, and I'm an artist as well. I've been a professional actress, as well as I'm sing, and I do fine artwork as well.
Damn, you do like everything. Jeez, it's just cover everything on that list, huh? You're just like, oh, here we go. What's next on my list of things to do? I do know that, it mentioned you were in A Beautiful Mind and then Law and Order, right? One of the Law and Orders?
Yes. So I was in A Beautiful Mind. And that's a whole big story. And basically, I was doing some acting at the time, and I was actually on tour with a company. And I had gone to an audition in New York City in the Lambs Theater, and the casting director, Bill Dance, was there. And he told the whole story of what A Beautiful Mind was about and how Russell Crowe was going to be the main character and Jennifer Connelly, and what Russell Crowe went through, in his mental health struggles. And I so wanted to be in the movie. Well, he called everybody up to the front of the auditorium, one by one or in pairs or groups. And I was one of the last people left in the auditorium. And he calls me up with another girl, and he gets to me at the front and looks at me straight in the face. And he says, "You look like you spent the morning in the bathroom." And I just looked at him and I reflected for a minute, taken aback. And then I was like, "No, I didn't. Honest, I didn't." And he looks at me again. He goes, "Okay, you, and you go get your pictures taken together." So we went to the back and they took our photographs. And then I hadn't heard anything. And all of a sudden one day I'm on the weekend away from the acting I was doing, and I get a call directly from Bill Dance. And he says, "Karen, we want to put you in the movie." He goes, "I want you to be this character in the movie where, if you're familiar with the movie, there are a couple of billiard scenes where they're playing pool." And I was supposed to be one of the 3 girls in one of those scenes. And I said to him, "When is it? When are you filming?" And he told me, these are the dates. And I said, "Well, I have a conflict with that date because I have another show with the company that I've been on tour with." And I say, "Can I please call you back?" And so he's like, "Okay." So he gets off the phone, and I rushed and called a couple friends and got some advice from people and really thought it over and prayed about it and decided that I just couldn't say yes to him. So I called him back, and Bill gets on the phone and he says, "Okay, well, what is your decision?" And I'm like, "I can't do it." I said, "I have a tour with another company that I'm already committed to, and I can't say no to that." And he goes to me, he goes, "Well, you're going to get your SAG card." And I'm like, "I understand that, but I just can't do it." And so what happened was I then was told by all these people, "Well, they're never going to put you in the movie." And I had told him, "Please, keep me in the movie anyway." And a couple months later, they did call me and they did still put me in the movie. I just wasn't that main character that I was originally supposed to be. But I was just so honored to still be in the movie.
Yeah, that's so cool, though. I mean, you get to say that you're in a motion picture. I mean, how many people could say that at all? Especially when Russell Crowe. Did you get to meet him by chance?
I didn't meet him personally, but I walked right by him in one of the scenes. So we looked at each other and we were right next to each other. And the other thing, which was really cool for me, was that I was on a similar situation with Ron Howard because he's the director of the movie. And so Ron Howard and I were walking down a hallway opposite directions, and we literally went right past each other and locked eyes on each other as we walked by. So I was like, that was really amazing to just have that interaction with Ron Howard.
Oh my God, that'd been awesome. Like that's something to brag about there for sure. That's so cool though. And I don't know what I would have gone fangirl, honestly. I would have been like, I don't know. I don't know if I would have kept it together, honestly, because I love Ron Howard films. He does really great. And Russell Crowe is a great actor too, man. And I'm just like, I saw that too. When it's an actor, I was like, I'm jealous already. Okay. And then how did the Law and Order thing come up though? That's interesting too. Was that during your acting career too, when you were doing a lot of traveling as well?
Yep, that was when I was living in the New York City area, and I ended up being on a couple episodes. One episode I recall was when I was in a courtroom and they were doing a courtroom scene. And the other one, which I really recall the most, was I was actually a prisoner. And so they dressed us up in in the full orange jumpsuits, and they had us in a real prison. And it was an episode where all of the guards were coming in with their big shields and their SWAT, uniforms. And they were just coming charging at us, all of us that were the extras who were the prisoners. And we had to run across the room. It was like the cafeteria against the wall while all these SWAT team members came against us. And I turned around and there was a table in the way and I didn't know what to do. So I literally ran over the table to get to the wall because I'm like, I got to get out of here fast, in my character and everything. And the next take they did, they said to me, don't go over the table this time. So I was like, okay. So they did it again and I went around the table this time. And when I actually saw the actual episode, they used the scene that I went over the table in the episode. So it was
I
pretty
was going to say
cool.
the same thing. Did he use the one over the table? It had to be though. I mean, that makes more or
Yeah.
less sense. You're taking off in a hurry trying to jump this table. I think that would have been the better one too. Honestly, I'm glad that's the cut they went with though.
Yeah, yeah. And I was, we were in this actual prison. So we actually went into some of the cells and it was just amazing, like perspective to see what it's like, in these all, silver, stainless steel toilet and, bed and small room and wow, this is, a real wake up call on what it's like to be in prison.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. All right. So let's get to the nitty gritty. Let's talk about the book. So, how did you come up with the book? I know you had the other books, but then I saw a little preview of this because I was watching another interview you did, and I think it was the healing something. I can't remember the rest of the podcast. I do apologize because I did check out ahead of time and I know they were mentioning it. So, how did you come up with the winning battle? I know it's just a series of books, correct?
Yes. So the first two books are winning the breast cancer battle. And then this new book is winning the mental
Oh,
health
okay. Yeah, there it
battle.
was. There was.
Yes. And I
Okay. So,
really yeah, the breast cancer books came about because I went through breast cancer, and when I was going through breast cancer, I found I needed to journal. And I'd been a journaler my whole life, and so I literally, journaled every single thing I was going through during the breast cancer battle. And eventually, years later, I realized, that I was definitely making it into a book, and so I had taken my journals, which at the time I had started editing, if you can believe that. So, I mean, I had some sense that I was making a book at that time. But then in 2019, I put together the first book, which was the breast cancer book. And then I knew that I needed to write a mental health book about the struggles I've been through in mental health and help people that have gone through things like anxiety, depression, PTSD, mania, and really just get that out there as well so that I can help the people that are struggling in that vein as well. And it just took a couple of years before I started really focusing on that, more so because I wanted to make sure that the time was right for me to be publishing it and putting it out there. And also to let, the world continue to progress and getting away from stigmatisms and, really kind of getting more aware of the different mental health issues.
yeah. Yeah, no. This is not the first time that we've touched breast cancer as a topic on the show. Actually, I invited another author. She had wrote a book called The Mastectomy I've Always Wanted, and she had a double mastectomy done, and she came on, and I read the book. It was really good. I'm not going to lie. I was like, I told people I was reading this book. They kept giving me weird looks, but I was just like, whatever. I'm going to read this anyways. I'm enjoying this book. It's interesting to get the perspective of what this woman was going through. And the author, she was going through her own accounts of what was going on. So was your first book kind of like that too? Just going through the thought process of what you were thinking at the time?
Yes. So my first book, Winning the Breast Cancer Battle, Empowering Warriors and Guiding Loved Ones, that book was based off of the journals that I had written as I was going through it. So as I had mentioned, I was really journaling all of my experiences, and I wanted to,
Hmm.
again, give the reader the sense of knowing what it was like to go through breast cancer so they wouldn't have such a hard experience and such a difficult experience of not knowing what to expect or not knowing how things would go, or not knowing what to ask doctors, or just being dark and blindsided. And so that's how I had felt when I went through it, because I didn't know anybody who had gone through breast cancer. And the only thing I had known about cancer was that my father had died when I was 10 years old, of cancer. So, I wanted to shed that light for people. And I've been told by people with other types of cancers as well that it's very relatable to them too, because when you go through cancer, you go through a lot of the same testing and a lot of the same experiences.
Yeah.
So, I was happy to hear that it was helpful to them as well.
That's awesome. I mean, that's really cool that you're sharing your own personal thoughts from your own journal because that was similar to the other book too. She was putting her own personal stuff in there too, a little bit as well too. So that's really interesting. So then the mental health battle, I love it. I think it's a great idea for a book. I just think like when I started this show, I did find the same thing is that not a lot of people are talking about it. Like you get these doctors that are talking about it, but the great thing is that I'm not a doctor. I'm just an average person. I have my own mental health struggles I deal with personally, but like creating that space for other people to talk about it is, been so important though. And then after 1 year of the show already, I've done over 200 different interviews. I could just tell you that it just gets more interesting every time you hit record because like when you talk about each one, we have to keep in mind that everybody deals with something different though. It's not a lot of like the same thing, like for a lot of people with other things to deal with, you don't have similar, you have similar, but you don't have the exact same experiences. Now don't get me wrong, some people may have the same thing, but you could probably contest this too, though, that it's different for every case, for everybody that deals with it. Some people have different experiences when it comes to those kind of things.
Yeah, there are a lot of different ways anxiety and depression and PTSD and mania can present in a person. There are certain characteristics that are stable within the diagnosis of it. So, with anxiety, you might
Hmm.
be easily fatigued. You might have difficulty concentrating. You might be irritable. You might have restless sleep. And of course, a main component is that you worry a lot. But, it presents differently for each person because we're all unique individuals and we all have our own perspectives on things and we all have our own life experience. So that all adds into it as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. And with depression, I think it needs to be said though. There was somebody recently on Instagram. This guy was live posting this video, and he's talking, and he's telling people that depression is not real. It's more of a mindset. For anybody that doesn't deal with depression, do you want to give them a little idea of what it's like with depression? I mean, I can give my own account, but what from from your research have you found out about depression?
Well, depression really has to do with a mindset. It is a mindset, it's an experience of your mind. So it's having a really low mood. I mean, you might be feeling like you're at the bottom and you just can't crawl out of it. And no matter what anybody says or anybody does, you just can't get up. You just might stay in bed and not want to do anything at all. You can gain weight or you can even lose weight. It can be in this mindset where you are just not able to make any decisions at all because you're just stuck and you feel that loss and that less intense feeling of interest in anything. So nothing seems to be interesting to you. You just don't want to do anything. And, it also can affect your sleep. So, as I said, you might be stuck in bed. So, you might be oversleeping, or the opposite, you could be undersleeping where you just can't sleep at all because you're so depressed you can't fall asleep and you just have thoughts going on in your mind. And of course, the big one is feeling worthless. So, just really not thinking anything about yourself is good, just thinking that you're not good enough, thinking that nothing I do could ever be good. And it becomes this kind of self-fulfilling prophecy in a way that you perpetuate these feelings, because the more we get stuck in that deep dark hole, the harder it is to get out of that deep dark hole. And the more we feel like we're worthless, the more we feel like we're not good enough, and the more we perpetuate that as well. And then, of course, that can also lead to thoughts of suicide and wanting to kill yourself and thinking that there's no way out. And so maybe if I kill myself, that at least will stop this misery and this pain of having no way out. Of course, the thing is that there are ways out. and people do survive depression. Some people do have long-term depression, and some people have a shorter amount of depression. But there is hope. You just have to get to the point where you find that hope.
Yeah. No, I agree. I have anxiety and depression myself, so I deal with it sometimes. So, but I want to correct myself. The Instagram live I'm referring to, the gentleman, he said that depression isn't real. I'm sorry. I think I mistakenly said something different, guys. But it was that he said that it's not real. It's not a mindset or anything. He's trying to basically discredit it, which is just the craziest thing ever. It's like, dude, why are you giving out this information? Mind you, this guy has no background in mental health whatsoever. He's just some fitness influencer guy that's posting things. And, and he was trying to basically tell people that, oh, well, it's just, it's all in your head, oh, this and that, or something like that. I didn't see the whole thing. I just saw people talking about it, though. But to get to this, to talk about the suicide ideation, I think that's a great point, is that it's not that people, they want to kill themselves. They want to get away from that pain. I think you made a really good point with that. And I think a lot of people don't need to realize that when it comes to that, is that if someone were to unfortunately take their own life, a lot of times they want that voice silenced, they want that pain to go away, all these other kind of things, it's and stop saying it's selfish, guys. Whoever's out there telling you that you have selfish thoughts, it's not selfish, because, right there, you're already giving it a bad name when, it's not the case of the situation. It's not they're selfish, it's because they wanted something to stop, that pain to stop, that feeling like they don't feel useful enough, or they're not worthy, or they don't feel seen. And it's a lot of different factors when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, with the subject of suicidal ideation, Karen, do you have any tips for anybody that may be worried their friend may be suicidal? Is there anything they should be kind of looking out for?
One of the main things is to talk to them and to listen to them and really listen to what they're saying and really try to hear them and relate back to them, reflect back to them what they're saying, offer them your support and your presentness, being present with them physically, or and emotionally. One of the big things with suicide is can you go one more minute? Can you hold on for one more minute? Well, one more minute becomes 2 minutes, and 2 minutes can become 3 minutes. And so it's a matter of helping them get through the worst moment that they're at so that they can get to the other side of that worst moment where it's no longer the worst, so that it's that little bit better than it was. There are national safety mental health lines. There's 988 you can call. You can always dial 988, or
Mm-hmm.
you can text 741-741. Either of those numbers you can text to or call. 741-741 is just texting, but 988 you can call or text 988, and just really reaching out to that person and supporting them, being there for them.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think those are all really great points. Let's talk about mania though. I love how that's in the title, because I don't think a lot of people know what a mania is. Like, I know people go manic and things like that. So do you want to give them a little more explanation of what a mania would fall under? What kind of things would fall in that category?
Yeah, a mania could be anything from a decreased need for sleep to having an inflated self-esteem, just feeling like you're on top of the world, like everything is perfect and nothing at all could go wrong and everything is exactly the way it's supposed to be. It can be being very talkative, like you're talking really fast and you just can't stop talking and you're so excited and you have pressured speech because you have to talk about it right now and you have to get it out. It can be having very goal directed oriented activities, again with that inflated self-esteem that you're on the line to be the perfect person and your job is perfect and it's going to be perfect and you're going to be successful and you're going to make $1 million. It's very very large in life. Your life becomes very large, and then you can also do things that have consequences, like you could, as I mentioned, think you're making $1 million, so you spend $1 million, even though you might not have it. Or you might go out and sleep with a lot of people and have sex with a lot of people because you're feeling that that's the right thing to do and that that's good, and you're feeling sensual. So it's a lot of those type of things.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that though when it comes to mania. I know that, some people hear it, but that's all they see. A lot of people don't get to experience somebody with mania, and I think that's one of the biggest problems too, is a lot of people will see that and then they won't know what that is and identify what it is, and they'll go, oh, well, they're just crazy. When it couldn't be. It possibly couldn't be that. It could just be maybe they're going through a manic moment or something like that, or, any of those other things that fall in that category though. And I think it's the biggest misconception is that people, when we don't know something, we like to argue and say, "Oh no, they're crazy," and we got to stop doing that. We got to stop labeling everybody as crazy because not everybody's crazy. Sometimes it's just they deal with something that causes them to be that way, and stop like being so dismissive. Maybe learn some more about what it is so we better understand what we're seeing.
Definitely, because somebody who has mania is not crazy. They might at times give the perception that they're being crazy. Usually that's because they are not in balance. So when you look at mental health, there is a line. So if you have a balance line, and everybody has ups and everybody has lows, but that curve with somebody who's going through mania is more severe. That curve with somebody that's going through depression is more severe. So with the mania, that up goes farther up, and with depression, that down goes farther down. So it's just a little bit of an offshoot of what quote unquote is normal. I really don't like the term normal because I don't think there is a normal. Everybody is their own unique individual, and everybody has their own mental status and stability, So yes, it's a matter of saying, well, you know what, if this person is normal and that person's crazy, well, what are this normal person compared to some other person? So, I think you're right. I think we
That's a
need
good
to
point. I
stop.
think it's a good question there, though. What is normality?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think normality is relative to us as an individual. What is our normal status quo? What is our you know, normal flora, as opposed to when we're out of balance?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's a great point. I think it's all a really great point though, because I think that, that's just something we got to quit. And I think that, with this show, that's the goal is to educate more people on mental health, inviting people such as yourselves and other people come on to talk about these things so we can make the conversation louder, and people can understand that these are things that people deal with, and it's other than just anxiety, depression, all the things that everybody really knows. Like everything's, oh, that's anxiety or that's depression or this and that, but everybody mentions mental health, but nobody wants to talk about mental health. That's the part that I just don't get. It's so frustrating because it's like these school shootings. Oh, well, there's mental health issues in there. And then all they do is they go, okay, rug, I'm going to toss it on the rug and I deal with it later. It's like, but when are we going to deal with these problems? We're not talking about them enough. Clearly, if these people are having these issues and these things are happening, so what are we doing to solve the problem? Nothing. We avoid them. We go, oh, okay, well, never mind. Because it's such an uncomfortable conversation when it comes to those kind of things because people are like, oh, well, they have a mental illness issue. And then you start treating them differently, like they're like an alien or something from another planet or something. And it's not like that, and especially with suicidal too, just touching back on that a little bit, is when people find out someone has tried to commit suicide, the weird thing is that people start acting differently around them. Like, oh, we don't want to say something to upset them because they're really sensitive. No, stop doing that. Stop doing that shit to people because it's so rude to do that to somebody. Plus, you're making them feel different when they're not different.
Yeah.
Everybody has thoughts. Like what is the recent guy that worked on the Ellen show that we lost, unfortunately, had all this money, everything else, but at the end of the day, he still had problems in the backseat that no one knew about. And unfortunately, he committed suicide, and when he did so, it's like, okay, well, this proves the point that just no matter who you are, fame, fortune, rich, poor, you can have these kind of problems. Everybody has these issues. So when are we going to start solving the problem? Because, we see too many men dying too from mental health. If you think about the percentage, what is it? 80% of men, suicides are all men. It's like, okay, so when are we going to stop letting this happen and talk about it eventually, And it's the craziest part. It's like, we know these statistics, we see the statistics getting worse, but we don't do anything about the problem. We just like to talk about them for a brief second and then we disappear from them. Oh, well, there's Men's Mental Health Month. And then all those videos started flooding out about, oh, it's not that important. I think the reason that that's a whole month is because 80% of them are dying by suicide. Like, hello, red flag. How much more of this do you want it to be serious? 80% out of 100. That's 80%. Like, if you think about it, it's a group of 5 people. Majority of those people aren't going to be here because half of those dudes killed themselves from mental health or even more. And it's just like, what are we doing about this problem? Nothing. It's like, we all want to talk about it. It's a hot button issue for the month that it comes. And then it's all of a sudden everybody wants to silence it after. Okay, well, it's nothing else. Well, that's great because people like me who deal with these problems every day, we still have these issues after all these months and we still battle these problems, and anybody with like PTSD and all these other things, all have these problems continuously. And then it's like, it's, oh, great, let's highlight for this month. And then all of a sudden it just dies out. Like the conversation ended somewhere. Like, it's okay, we're past this month. All right, we're done talking about it. But we're not. It's still going on an issue. It's clearly an issue that needs to be solved because we're having too many people getting lost. And the percentages and the numbers don't lie. Everybody likes numbers. Well, here's your numbers for you. These many people are dying. It's like, hello, What more do you want us to do?
Yeah, it's true. The interesting thing about it, Pete, is that as a mental health therapist, as a licensed professional counselor or social worker, when we are trained and we work with people that have suicidal thoughts, we don't say to them, "Oh, well, how are you doing today?" and not even talk about the suicidal thoughts. We literally ask them
Yeah.
specifically about the suicidal thoughts and the suicidal questions and concerns and their plans, and we literally go right to that and actually discuss that with them. So, like you were saying before, that a lot of people, when they hear somebody suicidal, they're like, "Oh, well, I'm not going to talk to them about anything that has to do with that because that might make them want to kill themselves." Well, if they're wanting to kill themselves, they're going to want
Right.
to kill themselves whether you tell them or not. They probably already have the idea in their mind, of how they might want to do it. So it's more about bringing it into awareness and bringing it to the light so that it can be dispelled, and it can be worked through rather than hiding it in a corner, like you said.
No, I agree. I feel like when it comes to social media too, TikTok is really bad about this. And this is why I say this now, because you can't mention the word suicide, you'll get banned. You can't say anything about it, you'll get banned. And it's like, why stop? This is an adult app. This is an adult conversation. Why are you censoring something that is such a big problem that we need to talk about? Just because you're going to, like you just stated, just because you're talking about it, doesn't mean that person isn't still going to do it. If they've already got that thought in their mind, like you were saying, it's going to happen. They don't care what you're saying to them. Nothing you're saying is going to trigger them even further. They've already got the plan in place. And there was a video I watched this morning when I was on Instagram. It was these two guys. Okay, the setup, the two guys are in this scenario. They're at a soccer game. Guy sitting there, well, on the left is one looks pretty anxious, like something's wrong, but the guy on the right is the one that's super happy, okay? So the end of the video, what your thought is right now is you're thinking the guy on the left is the one that's going to kill himself, okay? All right, you think this guy is the one that's going to do the suicide act. No. The guy on the right, the one that's all up, cheering, excited, watching the game and everything, is the one, unfortunately, who takes his own life, And it was a good representation of no matter what, how happy someone seems, you don't know if that's what their thought process is, Like, we don't know what people are thinking half the time, And unfortunately, that's the scary part about it, And then everybody trying to silence it. I don't know why. It's like it's Suicide Awareness Month for September, and then it's like some of these apps are like, oh, we don't want to talk about it. But why? Why don't you want to talk about an adult conversation? Like, there's no kids that should be allowed in this app. Maybe you should police it better if you feel it's that way. But you need to talk about these things. That's how we bring more awareness to these things, And asking them if they're going to commit suicide is another good one too. Is what I learned from somebody else. It's like just ask them, like. You're not going to do any
Hmm.
harm asking somebody, listen, hey, are you planning on committing suicide? Like, if you're
Hmm.
worried, just ask them. Like, don't be afraid to ask that question to somebody. Like, I think that, a lot of people start getting real nervous and start worrying about what other people are thinking. And instead of just asking them, like, hey, listen, are you okay? Are you doing all right? Are you good? And things like that. And then they look at you, so, okay, no, are you really okay? Because I'm asking you because you have me worried. Just tell them your concerns. Let them know, hey, listen, I'm worried. I don't know. You seem like a little off. Is there something wrong? And just have a real conversation. But like Karen said, listen to them. Like listen, like fully engage what they're saying and listen. Be prepared to listen. Don't do anything else distracting. Stop whatever you're doing if you're going to ask them these questions and actually listen to them, because they're going to notice if you're not taking 100% of your time to listen. If you ask them and they start telling you, they're going to start telling you what you want to hear. Oh, no, I'm just fine, whatever. And because they'll notice if you're not listening to them. And I think that's the biggest thing is like, people hear that conversation, hear those words, they instantly go into a panic mode. Oh God, oh God. It's like, what are you panicking about? They're coming to you, talking to you. In fact, it's better that they're talking to you about it right now versus not saying anything and then unfortunately taking their life and not saying, then you going, well, I wonder what they were thinking the whole time.
Yeah, a lot of times people that are suicidal are very isolated. And so, just like you said, Pete, if you reach out to them, if you talk to them, if you say, "Hey, how are you doing?" and, persist, if they say, "Oh, I'm fine," well, yeah, like you just said, say, "Well, you don't look fine to me, you look upset," or
Yeah,
you don't,
exactly.
yeah, just really being present with them and persisting in showing that you care for them.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think, in my situation, I was very isolated. When my issue came up, when I almost had my own life, it was like that too. I was very isolated, but people didn't know because I was going through a lot at the time. Me and my ex, we split up. I was living in a hotel, and I lived like right down the street from where I worked. So she stole my car and everything else. So I was walking to work, everything like that. But no one knew after I clocked out and went home, the eternal struggles I had because I was alone all the time. Like when I wasn't there working, I was by myself 90% of the time, and things like that too, and It's horrible though, because like you're alone, your thoughts start racing, not to mention that anxiety's there, my depression's there. So all these other factors are playing on me. And then, I wasn't sleeping much. I'm trying to sleep, and that's hard too sometimes because my thoughts start racing in my head, and it's like all these other factors started contributing into what it is, and people are so far removed from what mental health is too. I just think a lot of people their advice for a lot of things is, what is it though? When you're depressed, it's, oh, you just got to cheer up. When you have anxiety and you're having one of those moments where you're freaking out, it's, oh, you just need to calm down. And I wish it was so easy to do that. I wish that light switch, just turn it off and let it go. It just doesn't work like that, unfortunately. And Karen can tell you 100% that that's the case. You telling somebody to calm down, I'm not even hearing you at that point. If I'm in a full freak out mode, I'm not listening to a single word you're saying. I'm not even listening to what you're telling me. I am in that fixated on whatever set me off that I'm freaking out about. I have that tunnel vision. So whatever, you could be saying something, but you're like a Muppet over there making a weird sound, or like, what is it? More like the Charlie Brown commercial, teachers from Charlie Brown. It's all I'm hearing. I'm not hearing what you're saying. I hear nothing that you're saying at any point in this conversation, and it's great that, all these places want to say, oh, well, hey, yay, mental health awareness month, in it's sad because like you see how little effort people put into it. But we deal with all these other things like people being burnt out, and then that plays in that factor. If you're already stressed out, you're burnt out, you're dealing with depression, anxiety, you got a lot of things going on at home. Everybody's like, oh, leave it at the door. It's hard to leave it at the door in that scenario for you when you've got all these things surmountedly building up. And I remember my first experience with somebody with borderline personality disorder was interesting because I started noticing little weird things they would do. And like, I just asked questions about it, and I was just curious because like, hey, so why are you doing this? And she just looks at me and she says, oh yeah, nothing. And then she eventually told me that's what it was that she had. So I got interested in looking into it. So I looked into that too. And that was so interesting to see that a lot of times that you have that and bipolar kind of line up a little bit, but then a lot of times people are misdiagnosed. So they say, oh, you're one and you're not the other, when it really could be the reverse opposite of that too, and things like that too. And I think since doing the show, the other interesting case I had was somebody has multiple personality disorder, which I know is DID now, but it was
Mhm.
interesting to see because if you watch her in the interview, she's talking. And if you watch close, you can see the little ticks that she does. It changes up a little bit, and then really that's what it is. I think people hear multiple personality disorder, they're like, "Oh, it's somebody with 20 different names." I'm like, not always. No, hold up, not always the same case. And I know it's hard to diagnose it too at the same time. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. And there are specific doctors or psychologists who are trained to specifically
Yeah.
diagnose. So, a lot of times, like where I work, we'll refer people out when we want a specific diagnosis and we want to rule out something. So if somebody might be, a questionable between, like you said, bipolar or having borderline, we might refer them to a psychologist to have them do a definitive diagnosis. And, that psychologist is trained to look at all the avenues of their life and really determine what their diagnosis technically is. And I think a point of what you were saying before, though, was just that, yeah, when somebody says to you, up or calm down, I think, like for me, a lot of times it would just make me angry. Rather than wanting to cheer up, it would
Mm-hmm.
make me more depressed or more angry than I was. Or calm down, it gets you more elevated. So sometimes it's, again, being there for the person and saying, hey, how can I help you through this? What can I do to help you get past this moment? Or to work with a trained counselor who can teach you the techniques of what to do so that the person who is suffering through it can better regulate themselves.
Yeah, yeah, all great points too. I really agree. I do agree. I think it irritates me more when people tell me to calm down. It's like, and it's in any setting, like they're telling you, well, you need to calm down, my boy. Woo, let me tell you, you haven't seen calm yet. I've yet to get upset, and I don't think it helps either, And then you also have is all the misinformation floating around in the internet. Like, the internet's great, but at the same time, it can be very detrimental because people start looking up and getting wrong information, and these people everybody has advice these days, everybody's their very own, Ask Jeeves, as I'd like to say. For anybody old enough to remember Ask Jeeves, you got your own Jeeves at hand here that are just giving out advice, and none of them have any idea what they're talking about. Hey, do this, do that. I could solve your problem in a day. Well, that's great, but I really don't think that's possible. But okay, sure, whatever you say, and all the other things like that. And it's just aggravating when you see it though, too. Like the lack of empathy people have for other people with these issues. They're always like, oh, you're overreacting, or you're crazy. Or, that's the thing with a lot of ladies. They're always crazy. I'm like, but are they crazy though? I mean, think about it. Could it be that, or could it be there's something, there's something else they deal with? Because you don't know what people are dealing with. Like, you
Mm-mm.
can't look at people and go, okay, well, I know they're this, and that about them. And it's like,
Well,
doesn't work
yeah,
like that,
and
guys, unfortunately. And gals, it's just not how it works.
yeah, and the thing is that these names are so commonplace now that people are very quick
Hmm.
to label somebody, whether they've been trained to put a diagnosis with somebody or not. So it's like, oh, well, that person has borderline, or that person multiple personality, or that person has bipolar, and it's not even a matter of saying that they have the disorder. It's saying they are the disorder, which is not accurate either. It's just like with heart disease, you have
Hmm.
heart disease. Well, with anxiety, you're not anxiety, you have anxiety. You're not borderline personality, you have borderline personality disorder. So it's a difference
Yeah,
in
exactly. Yeah,
it's
that's
like a
great
perspective
points.
shift that needs to happen.
You have really great points there.
Okay.
Exactly. I think that's great because there was a girl that was on the show. She had actually made a comment. And okay, so Whitney was the young lady that I met. She came on and she made probably the most powerful statement I've ever heard from last year when on this show. She said, literally said that my name is Whitney. I deal with, and then listed off the issues she dealt with. She said, these do not identify me as a person, just like what you said. And I think it's so powerful for people to understand is they take that diagnosis and they run with it and go, oh, well, no, I'm manic. And then they just play off it. It's like, just because you have these things doesn't mean that's you. That's not you, Karen, me, Peter, as a person. That's just something you're dealing with. And these are things that you deal with on a daily basis. And people like yourself are trained to help us deal with these problems and sometimes make it manageable so it's not so much of a problem that it affects our day-to-day life. And I think people need to understand that is when they go to therapy, it doesn't make you crazy. A lot of people see therapists that you don't even know of, that don't want to tell you about it, just because it's a personal thing. A lot of times people don't want people to know they're talking to somebody, help them figure out their thoughts in their heads, and it's
Mhm.
it's great because I talked to a guy and I asked him, I said, so what's your fear about therapy? He's like, well, I think I'm crazy. I said, why do you feel like you're crazy? He goes, well, if I tell somebody, I'm like, you don't have to tell anybody you go to therapy. You can go to therapy and talk to somebody for your own self. If you want to get yourself in a better headspace, or you feel like you have these things where you think somebody can help you, then why limit yourself because what everybody else is saying? And I think it's that whole that fear of people knowing you're going kind of thing too. And it's like we need to stop that too. It's like if somebody's in therapy, let's not judge them for that. Like obviously you don't know what they deal with on a daily basis. We don't know if maybe they have a diagnosis. Maybe it's just they have trouble figuring out their own thoughts, or something that happened when they were a kid. We don't know. Just don't make them feel like a different person or make them feel like they're crazy or any of those stereotypes that people come up with because it's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to talk to people. People like Karen here are here to help you with these things. That's what they're trained for. If there wasn't a need for them, they sure as heck wouldn't be here. So she's not just hanging out for her own good time. So in things like that too. So
The thing is that
so with
therapy,
that being said, Karen, we're gonna oh no, go ahead, Sarah. Karen, I'm sorry, I cut you off. My bad.
with what you just
No, you can
said,
go right
is
ahead.
that with therapy, it doesn't have to be that somebody is suffering from anxiety or depression or another mental illness. Therapy could be
Yeah.
just a sounding board for you. So I have some clients that come in because they're going through a divorce and they want to talk about what's going on
Mm-hmm.
in their relationship. So it could be help with relationship. And so again, there is that stigma still, and it's getting better, but we need to continue to work on that stigma.
Most definitely. I agree. I agree 100%. So, Karen, we're at the fun part of the show. I don't know if you've ever seen one of my episodes before, where I ask my class two important questions. Okay. So, the first one is actually credit to a good friend of mine. She runs a podcast called The Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. Okay. So, when we interviewed, she asked this question that I've stole and I'm running with it now. It's basically this: Karen, if your mental health had a song, what would that song be?
I would probably have to say it's like, oh
That's a
no,
good
this
one.
is not good. Oh my gosh, help me. Somebody listen to me. Listen to me now as I tell you the story that is going on inside my.
I love it. I absolutely love it. It's great. All right. And so the second question I ask, and the whole reason I started this podcast is if you could break the stigma about mental health. I'm talking about like the thing that you see every day on a daily basis that you see and you just go, could you all just please stop? What would that be?
I really think it goes back to that idea of labeling somebody as crazy. People that have mental health struggles, mental illness are not crazy. They might do things that appear to be crazy like, but it often is because they are unbalanced and they need to get balanced. So sometimes that has to do with the medication, sometimes that has to do with therapy, sometimes that has to do with both, combination. I personally believe in a combination. I don't think anybody who's taking medication should only take medication. I think they should also get therapy. And so it's really that. I mean, it's really hard for somebody to be called crazy. And, person going through mental health struggles often will label themselves crazy. And so to have somebody else tell them, well, you are crazy, it just makes it so much worse and just depletes their self-esteem.
Yeah. I think it's all great points. Karen, thank you so much for being here. Would you like to plug exactly where people can find you guys? And before Karen tells you where to find her, I will have her book listed down below with the Amazon link on how to find it. And I will have her, I'm going to put her cancer book down there, the breast cancer book down there too as well. That way, in case somebody else listening would like to check that one out too, you definitely can find it. So Karen, where can everybody find you at?
Yes, so my handle on most platforms is Karen E. Iverson. So it's KarenEiverson. And you can find my books on Amazon. Again, if you just type in Karen Iverson, you can find them. They will come up. And they are called Winning the Breast Cancer Battle, Empowering Warriors and Guiding Loved Ones, Winning the Breast Cancer Battle Companion Journal, Empowering and Guiding Breast Cancer Warriors. And the most recent one is Winning the Mental Health Battle, From Struggling to Thriving, 7 Tips to Navigate Anxiety, Depression, and Mania.
And with that being said, guys, we're going to wrap up this episode of Pete for Anxiety. You guys know where to find me. I'm Pete for Anxiety on X, all the way down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio. And it's, always say it costs nothing, absolutely kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety signing off saying, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?
But never dive the price for checks. I got my integrity and my word. I'd rather die than